All right, GFFL. Finally, we have somewhat clarity. We know who's in the playoffs.
No, at all. Not everyone.
Well, not everyone.
We're very close.
Just a
We're
few
very
seeds.
close.
We're so close. We may know by Tuesday night at midnight, maybe. So we got the commish with us. We got Frank, Matt, and myself, and we're here to discuss potential things that could happen, and then maybe we can talk about where we see the playoffs going and those kinds of things. And pretty much the only people that watch the show are on it right now, so it's just basically like us hanging out. So, Matt, I'll let you go ahead because you've been doing all the hard work.
Right.
Matt is our research department, if anyone was wondering that the whole season.
When I'm sober, I am.
Yeah, which was only a couple weeks, and I didn't do anything the rest of the time. So, but go ahead, man.
So basically, we'll do a little rundown of the final projections, and we really only have one really close game right now. That's probably going to go down to the wire. That is Bob and Uncle Rico. Tim is also in a game that is not completely out of the stretch of imagination of him losing. But as it stands right now, we got the 1 seed with Whitest locking that up at 10-3. Bob, if he ends up making a win here today or tomorrow rather, he'll go to 9-4. Hoover's taking the L this week, but he's locked in the 3 seed at 8-5. Some different scenarios could happen. We'll talk about that a little bit later. For the 4 seed, right now it's projected to be Tim at 7-6. The 5 seed is locked in with Mokel being 8-5. Then we have Rico at 6-7. Again, that's subject to change with him and Tim having the potential to change. Half Baked locked into the playoffs at the 7 seed. I don't believe he can change. I think that seed is his regardless. We were talking a little bit earlier. I think that seed is regardless of what happens. He's the 7 seed. And then the 8 seed right now is myself. The only way that changes is if Lance pulls out an upset against Tim tomorrow and it goes to 6-7, he would move into that 8 spot and kick me out of the playoffs. So that's the breakdown of what I have. You guys want to talk about that a little bit?
Yeah. Go ahead, Bob.
Yeah, I mean, Matt did some nice work behind the scenes here. He had a little spreadsheet and had it all set up, and I looked it over briefly because I did the same thing today. I just did my chicken scratch on some paper though. But no, he's right. The Chaos Whitest is locked up that 1 seed. I'm in the 2 seed no matter what. Even if I end up losing this to Rico, Hoover and I would have the same record, but I beat Hoover head to head. Hoover's record is going to be better than Tim's or Rico's, so Hoover falls to the 3 slot. That 4 and 6, the 4 seed is going to be our 4th division winner, whoever that ends up being, whether it's Tim or Rico. Maybe Tim and Rico both win. That's the only other thing actually that we should check. Tim, as if, well, what Rico just beat Tim last week, so actually it won't matter. So the only way it would have changed is if Tim would have had, the season sweep on him, but he doesn't, as Rico beat him last week, and Rico's the highest point scorer in the league, so it's going to come down to points. The only way Tim can win the division is if Rico takes a loss and Tim picks up that win. Mokel is 8-5, so he's the best of the rest, the best of the teams to not win a division. So he will be the 5 seed. And then, yeah, Frank, based on points, Frankie's locked in at the 7 hole. And then right now we have up in the air is any given Sunday and Yinzers. If Yinzers can pull this out tomorrow, he could sneak in and kick Matt out, which is brutal.
Yeah, which he not only would he beat me last week, but he'd beat me again this week. So,
man, well, I'm looking at Gallup's only had 1 game in
the
the
last
double
8
digits.
games. Yeah.
Well, in double digits. I mean, it was week 3 at Seattle. And if you remember, that was the game that Seattle was destroying them early.
You're saying that he's due.
Yeah,
They're playing Baltimore though. I see Matt holding on to that 8 spot in my opinion.
Now Zerline gets double digits fairly often. I mean, he's gotten 1, 2, 3, 5, like 5 times.
I think that game comes down to, and I think Frank, you said it earlier. I think if Gallup scores a touchdown, I think that game gets really interesting.
Yeah, that's what I said to Frank earlier. 30-yard touchdown to Gallup, or 30 yards receiving and a touchdown is 9 points, and we're talking Zerline needing 14.
Yep.
I mean, now he hasn't gotten 14 yet this season, but he's gotten 13 a couple times, and that's even being, that's being a little light on the touchdown side. I mean, 50 yards in a touchdown gives him 11, and then what's he need at that point? 13 from the kicker, not even.
Yeah,
12, which is doable. Now, I mean, he's got some work to do for sure. Like, it's not going to be early that we figure this one out. It's
You're going to be sweating a little bit tomorrow. It's going to be an intense night.
I was watching this early game tonight intently. A, because it was the Steelers, but B, because it had a lot of players for both those teams playing. And then Gibson gets hurt, which really, really helped.
Third carry of the game, I think. He was out.
Yeah. And then Steelers defense, I mean, Alex Smith played a pretty good game controlling the ball, and Juju didn't do anything until the fourth quarter. So, I mean, I was looking to get, or I was hoping that Tim would get to 100, and I'd feel pretty safe. So right now, I think that he's still within striking distance. For
I tell you what, if Gibson doesn't get hurt, I think you lose this game, almost 100%.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, even if Gibson gets 9 more points, that puts him at 78. We're talking needing 13 points to win. And a kicker that's probably, going to get you anywhere from 7 to 9, we'll say 8. He would need, 40 yards or 1 yard and a touchdown, or
100%. You look at what Washington did on the ground today, and just through their screen passes, you figure if that's Gibson in there, he's having at least a 10-point game. You would imagine, but I guess that's behind us now. So we'll just be intently watching tomorrow night. Couple teams.
That's pretty poetic here. You're relying on Tim to win, and we've been ragging on him all year long, man.
Yeah, I know. It's a good thing that he needs the win too to lock up that division.
Right. I don't know, man. You know what? I was thinking this whole time we've been talking about this. I was like, I don't know, CeeDee Lamb, man. He's a young guy, and then I just realized I was looking at Mokel's team, and I'm like, wait a second. He's on Mokel's team. I was thinking CeeDee Lamb, not Gallup. Yeah, dude, I'm even more confident now that I just realized that.
Gallup's young too. Gallup's only his second year, I think.
Yeah, but I don't know. I'd be more worried if it were CeeDee Lamb.
No, there is a backdoor chip. I don't want to throw too many wrenches in. No, I don't think that's going to happen. Yeah, and it's looking like. Yeah, I'm now projected to lose only by like a half a point. Whitus has got his wrapped up. Matt, yours is done, signed, sealed.
Yep.
Got it done. I think Mokel should hold up Rich off unless J.K. Dobbins goes off, but he'd have to score.
I mean, he'd have to really.
And that game doesn't have any that like Rich can't make the playoffs, and Mokel can't move down even if he goes to 7-6.
Right.
So.
Oh, Mokel can't move down at 7-6. Oh no, I guess because you guys are all 6 and 7.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I guess now that we kind of have it sort of figured out, obviously a couple things could be different. I was talking about it before we got on. I really was wanting to avoid the part of the bracket where it was going to be Whitus' team and Uncle Rico, and it sort of looks like I'm landing in that spot where it could potentially happen. So I think that could be.
No, you're on the 3. You're the 3 seed, so you're on the bottom side of the bracket.
I am.
Yeah, because the 1 seed's at the very top, the 2 seeds at the bottom, the 3 seeds at the top of the bottom, and the 4 seeds on the bottom of the top.
Oh, okay.
So you're on the bottom side. If Rico wins the division, you avoided exactly what you wanted. That's going to put Rico, Bill, and Whitus all at the top.
And that's what I wanted to be completely away from. I just was like, no, thanks. Like, Rico's team scored a ton of points. Whitus' team's been great. And, don't get me wrong, like, Mokel has a good team, but, he just, after Mahomes and Cook, there's really not a lot that really worries me, but just the fact that Mahomes could go for 40 and Cook could go for 30 himself, that's
right. And then you throw Deontay Johnson to have a 20-point game, and all of a sudden he's at 90 points with 3 guys.
Right. But
it could have, but anybody's team can do that.
Right. And so, I'm not necessarily as afraid of his team as probably Whitus or Rico, but to avoid that whole scenario, it was like the only thing I was really that I cared about. Because of anyone in the league, throw out the records, throw out the seeds. Like when you start in the playoffs, it just doesn't matter.
Right. The thing I would be interested to hear what Tim thinks, because it's not like you get any bonus points for winning the division, right?
Right.
Like, does Tim want to win the division and know he's got Bill first game, or would he rather lose that and play you in the first round? I mean, that's his options. He's either getting Bill and he's going to be on Whitus' side of the bracket, or he's going to get you and he's obviously got to go through you, and then he's on my side of the bracket because I'm at the bottom at the 2 with hopefully CMC back.
I would imagine he would rather be away from Whitus, Rico, and Mokel. That would that's my guess.
Yeah. Well, yeah. Well, that's also where that changes too. If Tim actually loses the division, he actually will be on that bottom side. He'll play you, and if he beat you, he would play the winner of me and Frank.
So what's kind of funny, Bob, because I think you and I we have the same kind of temperament, or like we're very much not like, we don't like to talk about our team. We don't necessarily view ourselves as like we more so look at everybody else, and I'm sure maybe he's thinking it doesn't matter where I go because both my team and your team I would say are pretty good. So maybe he don't care.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I still, and I know people give me shit all the time because I'm humble. Like I don't talk a lot of shit or any of that, but like I honestly am very, very fortunate to even be in the situation I'm in. I've talked at other weeks that I've been on here just how many close games I've pulled out and won, and for me to be sitting here, winning the division, and even just being in this situation, I feel very fortunate. I do not feel overly strong about my team. I think Rodgers is really good. CMC needs to get back, and Carolina needs to use him and let him eat. And then Amari Cooper worries me now because of just their quarterback situation, and Darren Waller's fine. He's been doing really good for me. But I look at your team and it scares me. Rico's team scares me a lot. Whitus believe it, and maybe it's because Whitus has been a little quieter this year. Like Whitus has almost taken over that role that I used to put you in, like kind of the silent assassin. Like he just went 10-3. Yep. Like this dude just went 10-3, and we didn't hear from him a whole lot, but he, you look at his roster and Josh Allen, obviously big part. He's got Kareem Hunt, who didn't have a great week this week, but then you got Aaron Jones and Diggs and Metcalf and Ridley. And, you got Jonathan Taylor and guys on the bench.
That's a scary team right there.
Yeah. His bench isn't as scary as the rest of his crew, but his big boys at the top are nice, and the dude's 10-3. I mean, you can't really sleep on him. So
you don't necessarily need as much depth once you make the playoffs. I mean, right. Injuries could happen, but you don't have to plan around a bye week. You don't have to worry about any of that stuff. So your guys are your guys at that point. And he's got one of the best, if not the best, starting lineups objectively that you're looking at going, I'm going into the playoffs. Whose team do I want? If you could pick any of the teams that are going in,
Right. And I'll just say this. I mean, I'm not trying to throw any juju out there or anything, but I'm just saying if Matt gets in and he gets that 8 seed, you know, your points 4 aren't all that impressive, but you've made the playoffs at 6 and 7, and you've been scored on more than anybody in the league by a lot.
Well, I will say this. I think other than losing last week, I think if I, winning this week, I think will make me 4-1 in my last 5 games. So my team has kind of come on, but obviously losing Will Fuller, who we won't talk about, is a big loss for my wide receiving core, because I don't have any depth. And, all in all, I'm just really not strong enough to really make a run at it. But anything can happen on a given week, and I'm sure that anyone in the playoffs is going to hope that if I do get in or Lance gets in, that, we take a shot at taking out Whitus.
Yeah. And with the rule changes this year, it's you win one round, you're guaranteed at least your money back. You're getting that $150 back. All you got to do is win one time. So really, that's obviously the big payday goes up front to the big dog, but whoever ends up winning it, and then
Man, you just made me start getting all nervous because now it's like, damn, I got to win one.
Yeah,
it's like shit.
And I don't want to beat this up. I know Steve-O is probably kicking himself in the ass for missing the playoffs. As last week, that's a win. He wins that game last week, and even at losing this one, I mean, he's at that number 6. He's got that 6th win, and if you look at his points, but his points are low. I actually don't even know if it would have mattered. Maybe his points would have been a little higher had he started those extra couple players last week. But, it is, Hoover, you've touched on this a couple times, and you can talk about it further. Like, this is a sort of a big week in the GFFL. I hate that all these other guys haven't been here since the beginning to see it, but shit, man, Steve-O's never not been in the playoffs. This dude's been, and not only does he not miss the playoffs, he does not lose in the first round. That dude does not, he may take a 4th every once in a while, or he's taking some 3rds and some 2nds. That dude does not lose in the first round of the playoffs. And this is just the first time. I mean, this is the first time we're seeing no Steve-O in the playoffs, and he's going to be drafted in the top 4.
It's definitely going to be weird, and it's kind of funny to see potentially see the 2 new guys that come in, picking up 2 pretty crappy teams and making the playoffs, and making them into their own, and then don't look at it now, but the 2 guys that have never missed the playoffs in the keeper are being replaced by those 2 new teams. That's wild to me. That's really wild.
Yeah. And I know I've talked to Frank a lot more about this. I know Frank is very fortunate to be in the positions he's in. And I talked about this, I think, the first time I was on, is his back was against the wall. He took a much different path than you did. I mean, and honestly, Matt's team was much weaker, in my opinion, than the one that Frank took over.
For sure.
And the fact that, Frank made a bunch of splash plays and got out and, did it his way. Well, Matt did the same thing, but just in a different way and a little slower, a little more methodical, and they're both in the same place. And it's really cool. And it makes me proud that, we replace, these empty slots in this league, and we get more high quality, high caliber players to step in here and be a part of this. I just think it makes it better.
It kind of
you're just lucky.
No, man. Matt, you can't say that right now because the commission's on and he's live, and I'm pretty sure that was like his own way of like saying how great of a GM of our league he is.
My goal this year, I will tell everyone now, was to just make the playoffs with the team that I was dealt. I was like, if I can get young and just make the playoffs, that was my goal. But to kind of transition with the teams that we've talked about, let's run through, a playoff scenario and what we think, may potentially happen. We're gonna lock it down with the seeding that we have in front of us here as we're talking, where Tim gets that 4 seed, Rico gets the 6, and then I hold on and get that 8 seed. So that would then put the top half of the bracket being Whitus against myself, and then Tim in the 4 spot against Mokel. So how do we think that breaks down next week, and who do we think advances in those 2 games?
Well, let's see. What did in the first meeting between you two?
I got my ass kicked.
Okay. Let me find my sleeper here. And you guys are same division, so you played twice, correct? He beat you both times?
I'm
So this will be the third meeting?
fairly certain. Let me
looking
go
it up
back
now.
and see.
That's the only thing about Sleeper I don't like is you can't pull it up so you could see like
By
a
team, yeah.
team, you know.
Yeah, like a weekly breakdown of who you played.
So he beat you in week 3, 130 to 91. And
then again in week 5, 135 to 78.
Ooh.
Okay. So you went 2 sub 100 weeks against Whitus. Haven't really pushed him. And I also hate that I can't see like next week like who his players play.
Yeah, I'm with you. I wish I could see like just look at his team.
Because I would love to look at this, player by player. You can click on the player. Josh Allen plays the Steelers. It's in Buffalo. I'm going to look at some of his big boys. Aaron Jones is at Detroit. That could be juicy. So Diggs obviously is against the Steelers. DK's against the Jets.
Ooh.
Yeah. Ridley plays against the Chargers. I mean, he's just looking at his top 4. It looks really juicy. I don't know who you'd start at quarterback next week. Probably not Trubisky.
No.
Brady plays Minnesota. That could be okay.
You'd have to roll with Brady, yeah.
Yeah.
Definitely Brady for sure.
Eckler, Gallman, who you got on the bench? McKinnon, Pollard, Fuller's out. So Robbie Anderson would play Denver. It's in Carolina, so that's, I think, a little bit of a benefit. Yeah, I mean, I'd have to go on record and say Whitus gets the 3-peat and takes you out. His team, just from the top end, looking at kind of both your hot positions there at the top. I mean, he's got some really, really nice matchups now. We know that doesn't always work out, but my vote would be for Whitus, I think.
Yeah, I would be too, actually. That's not to say I'm not going to give it my all, but I think, objectively, I think he moves on. I think he beats me next week to move on to the second round. I think that's you just look at his squad, even without looking at the matchups. I do have some decent matchups for some of my guys next week, but unless I have 2 guys absolutely blow up, go for 35 points, he's just too consistent across the board, and he puts up 100 points plus. It seems like every single week.
Yeah, if
you'd have to have a big week, you'd have to have a high week.
He doesn't throw duds.
I'm rooting for you though. I'm rooting for the new guy.
I appreciate that.
I have a question for you, being the new guy, and you step in, obviously, and this is just maybe for my own benefit to kind of see where you're at with it and how you feel. But you step into this league, obviously, it's probably a little bit of a whirlwind, as it's so different than anything that you've probably played in before. And you step in and you see a team, not that you can necessarily be mad when you lose to a team like Whitus's team, but let's say he does knock you out of the playoffs and he, in your division, he smacked you 3 times now. Does that build anything inside of you? Like, hey, I'm going after that guy. Is it a rivalry? And I know you don't know him personally, but he came on the show once. Just kind of, how do you feel about that?
Not really, not yet, because I almost took this season as if I don't make the playoffs, I don't make the playoffs. I'm gonna set it up strategically, my team, the best way that I can see fit. So I really didn't even go again. The only games that I really wanted to win this year were, if I played Hoover or Tim, because I played them in other leagues and I know them personally so well. Right. So there's that immediate, you just want to beat those guys,
Mm-hmm.
But I didn't feel like this team has become mine really yet. I kind of felt like I need one more draft to get some of the guys that I want to go after and be able to. I didn't really even have the guys on my roster as trade bait to trade players away. without just
Right.
giving a slew of picks away. So, and I didn't want to do that because then I felt I'd just be handicapping myself. So I had to kind of strategically go after, young guys and throw darts at young guys to see who I could get to stick that I could hang on to for next year. And now I have, 6 guys I'm pretty happy with. A couple others I'll have some decisions to make. But I think, next year I'll probably look to do a little bit more as far as trades and stuff go, and then be able to go after, target some of the players that I want on my squad for a long time.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So right now, no. If this was, a year or two down the road and he was constantly kicking my ass, then yes.
Okay. All right, Hoof, what are you thinking?
I
You
think
like Whitus?
with what I think Whitus will probably end up winning. I mean, he you can't even sit there and say that he has some tougher matchups, for his better players. I do think, if Matt has a shot at it, Brady's playing the Vikings defense, and I mean, they're just bleeding points. So, I mean, you don't want to it's not, I don't, for Matt's sake, I don't think it'll be a cakewalk for Whitus, but, obviously he has to have Brady to have, 3-4 touchdown game. And, who knows, maybe that trade for Eckler will pay off for him. Jefferson's been playing really well. So, I mean, obviously everything has to go right for Matt, but, I kind of just see Whitus probably pulling that one out.
Frankie, what do you think?
I think realistically, Whitus probably gets the win. But on a perfect day, I'm gonna go with. I think Matt can pull it out. I'm rooting for him.
Let's go perfect day.
In a perfect day, listen. In a perfect day, me and you meet in the championship as the 2 newcomers.
Chill.
I'm just saying one thing. On my
Chill.
side of the bracket, I have beat every team on my side of the bracket this year.
Chill. Can we mute him?
Actually, yeah, I could remove them if you want.
Wait, would that be
Don't put me backstage. Don't put me backstage.
the 7 and 8 seed meet for the championship? The 2 new guys? That'd be great.
That would be a dream
I
scenario.
don't think that's happened. I mean, I'd have to, man. I don't even know if I
And
can.
That's there. Hey, there's a lot of firsts this year. It's Corona.
So-
It's Corona season, dude.
So we make it. We just throw up like 140 points a game, and then we get to the championship round, and it's like
80 to 81.
Yeah.
There was one. I forget which year it was, but there was a Super Bowl game that somebody got absolutely murdered. Like whoever won scored like 160, and somebody else scored like 52. Like it was really
I
bad.
remember that one, yeah.
It was. I wonder if I can. I'm going to try to get on ESPN and access it while we talk about the next matchup.
So I think the next matchup becomes a little more interesting with Mokel and Tim, and without doing all of the research and looking through all of the players, because that's a little bit time consuming right now, but just looking at the squads, like Tim started off really, really hot, and he was extremely high with points scored, and in the last half of the season he's kind of cooled off a little bit. He has I believe Josh Jacobs probably not playing again next week.
That stings.
We made that trade for Eckler with Montgomery, and hats off to him because Montgomery's scored more touchdowns in the last 2 weeks than he did the whole first 11 games of the season. But I don't know that
Frank Gore's hurt too, so he's also down another running back.
Gore's down too. And, the only bright spot that I see that's really been coming on strong lately is Jarvis Landry's played very well the last 2 weeks. He didn't have a touchdown this past week, but he did have a touchdown, excuse me. So, I like Jarvis. Russ has cooled off a little bit as well, but I kind of like Mokel in that matchup. If Tim hangs on to that 4 spot, I actually look for the 5 seed to upset if you want to call it an upset, I look for the 5 seed to win there. After I need Tim to win me this week.
Win this week, lose first round playoffs.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Frank.
I think I would agree. I mean, Mokel has Mahomes and Cook. I mean, just those two players alone could go off for 70 points.
I will throw this out there. Mahomes does play at Miami. Now, not Miami's defense has been pretty good. I'm not saying that they're going to stop them, but they could slow them down.
Definitely could slow them down. I mean, Cook, Julio Jones, CeeDee Lamb. I mean, he's just got his team is just tough, man. Tim's got some injuries. I think I would agree, and I think Mokel takes that one. That would be my vote.
Who we got?
I think I'm just looking at it like. I mean, I know this is what end up freaking happening. Like, I'm going to say all this stuff, and then I end up playing Mokel's team, and he'll fucking throttle me. Yes, I think Mahomes can go for, a ton, but you never know. It could be one of those weird games where, they have 2 rushing touchdowns or something like that, and, Mahomes only comes out of the game with 20 points.
Oh, I hope so.
And then, Cook has, a somewhat of a tougher matchup against Tampa Bay. And, so, I mean, but the nice thing with Cook is, he's not game script dependent. Even if they're getting blown out, they could still utilize him. But, like I was saying before, after you get past those 2 guys, Mokel's team, it doesn't like scare me a whole lot. Obviously Deontay Johnson's been coming on. Julio Jones, he seems like he's good for 10 points, but it's not like, I don't know. I don't think you have to worry about him going off for 20. And then, his flex spot isn't too strong. I think Tim has a really good chance. Now, to kind of go back and start talking about Tim's team, I was always shocked. And if you think about it, how everyone was talking about Russell Wilson, MVPs, it's a great player. Well, that's when Tim's team was hot. Now that conversation has kind of come and gone, Tim's team has struggled since Russell Wilson has cooled off. So, Tim does have a couple players like with Crowder and, Jarvis Landry, which I think, have been surprises. And then Pittsburgh's defense, they've been pretty good. And, unfortunately, as a Steeler fan and unfortunately for Tim, their injuries left and right. So, as much as, I think Tim has a pretty good shot against Mokel's team, but, I just don't think – I think his team's on the decline, and I think Mokel pulls it off.
I think I would have to agree. I'm going to go as far as I think this is going to be very close, even with Tim's injuries. I think if Tim was 100%, I think Tim might win this game. I mean, Bill just does not have great matchups from Mahomes all the way down. Even if you start looking into some depth, I went down and looked at Ruggs. Ruggs plays against Indy. Like, I know that Indy defense has been suspect a little bit over the last 5 or 6 weeks a couple times, but the Raiders have also really been weird. Like, I don't know exactly what they have going on out there. So I think because Jacobs is out and because we could see no Frank Gore, I think Tim, and you're right, for whatever reason Russell Wilson has almost face planted. I mean, he was like on fire, and now he's
16 and 17 points.
Yeah, 16, 17 points. Now they do play the Jets next week.
Yeah.
Now, does that mean we're going to get a heavy dose of Chris Carson or whoever this week is running the ball for Seattle? I don't know. But I do think that this will be closer than people think, and I think that Bill, just with his top end of Mahomes and Cook and some of those big boys he has, I think ultimately sends Tim packing. But I think it's going to be close.
Yeah, and I think one kind of final piece is Tim's really relied on the Steelers defense this year.
Yeah.
Like they've scored a lot of points, a lot of weeks. Other than today, they've had 2 other weeks where they've been under double digits for defense. And I mean, he's probably averaging close to 15, 16 points, just looking at it across the board.
All right, like, listen to this 5-week span here for the Steelers. Oh my gosh. Like, even just go through the whole season, from the beginning, 11, 20, 12, they had a bye, 14, 22, 4, 22, 9, 16, 19, 17, 6. That's insane. That's insane from a defense.
Yeah, that's a big factor in the reason that he's won some of his games is because his defense, he's had that start him every week defense that is really, hats off to him for getting the Steelers. But you never know. They could get a pick six next week or something. But Buffalo's a pretty tough matchup against the teams that he's had to face this year, as far as offenses go. And Tennessee was one of the teams that they didn't play that well against. So, some of these other teams on here where they put up a lot of points, interdivision games, Jacksonville, Philadelphia, Houston, Denver, the Giants, they're not great offensive teams.
No.
So, I think he needs a big performance from the Steelers to win next week. And we'll move on, but I'm giving a slight edge to Mokel on next week if it stays the same.
Yep.
All right, so then we got to move to my game. So,
Yep.
Frank, why don't you go ahead and start off with the homeboys against Uncle Rico?
I think this is going to be a battle. You guys both score a ton of points. Let's see. Who's Herbert play next week? He's got Atlanta. I mean, that could be good. It can be a good bounce back game for him. Henry's going to be. I mean, he's not going to have 60 yards again. He's going to go off, I think.
Playing Jacksonville.
Yeah, that could be. Yeah, he could be huge for you right there. Hopkins. I mean, your team has so many playmakers that can score at any time. It's amazing that this week you did not score more than you did. Like, I think you had all your flukes out of the way right before playoffs. I like your team a lot going in. Now Rico, let's see here. He's also got a great Kamara, Adams. I mean, Miles Sanders hasn't been doing nothing. I'm not worried about him at all. Tannehill could be iffy next week. I think just looking at, I mean, they do play Jacksonville too, though. I mean, but if Derrick Henry goes off, Tannehill's really not doing anything. I would give this matchup.
He might play Lamar. He could play Lamar though against Dallas.
Yeah, I mean, he's got Zeke on the bench too.
Yeah, against Pittsburgh.
Miles Gaskin, Tyler. I mean, he's got a lot of good players. It's going to be a battle. I think it could. I think it's within a 10-point. Whoever wins, it's going to be within 10 points, and I'm going to go with Hoover. Would be my guess.
You're nice.
I'm gonna go with Hoover. I think this week was a fluke for you. I think you're going to score big next week.
Man, I like both of your matchups.
Yeah, me too.
And honestly, I was just looking at the points scored. Up until this week, Uncle Rico scored 1425. Hoover, you're number 2 at 1401.
Yep.
We're talking 24 points difference over the course of 12 weeks. That's 2 points a week on average. I mean, that's nothing. It is really, really weird that Rico's. At the record that he's at with scoring the points that he has is just insane to me. Honestly, everything I look at, Hoove, I just like what you have. You have options at QB. You could play Herbert. You could also play Teddy. I mean, if you wanted to, Teddy plays Denver. But I agree. I think Henry's not gonna go down like that again. D-Hop plays the Giants. Keenan, plays Atlanta. So, that's usually juicy. Seattle's got the Jets. I mean, just everything you touch, other than Kelsey playing Miami. Allen Robinson's got Houston, but he's just a target monster. He's gonna get his. You have options with Fournette and Rojo. They're playing Minnesota, which depending on what you decide to do there. And even the Ravens D against Dallas, you would think that would be a nice matchup where, you look at Rico. I think he has some potential issues he could play Tannehill at Jacksonville, but he's going to have to sit. He's going to have to sit his stud, right? Like, do you sit your big horse in the biggest game of the year to this point? Do you sit Lamar down and say, okay, Tannehill, this is your team right now? He'll be playing at Cleveland. And we know that Lamar is kind of underperformed and just missed a week. I don't like Zeke's matchup a ton. I mean, they play at Baltimore. Kamara is at Philly. That could be nice for him. Devontae plays at Detroit. That could be really nice. Tyreek's at Miami, though, and you just never know about Tyreek. I mean, he could go off for 200 yards in the first quarter, which we've seen, or he could get 2 points. Like, he's just so hit and miss. It's just really weird. But then, he's also got the Seahawks defense against the Giants, which could be good. Or no, sorry, that's who they played this week. He's got Seahawks against the Jets. I'm sorry. So, man, flip a coin. I mean, I think that, just like Tim's matchup, I think Tim's and Bill's matchup is going to be very close, but I think it's going to be like low 100s, like in that range. Like, I actually think you and Rico might both put up $135.
Yeesh.
It just might be a massive game. And to be honest, I'm going to take you to win it based on, I think you're more solid at the quarterback position. I think that's where the majority of the points come from in this league. I think you have better options at quarterback next week that put you over the top. Like I said, I like matchups on both sides of the ball. I think you're both going to put up big points. But I will also stick with Hoove.
I keep looking at everything and going back and forth in this. So the one thing that I do not like on Hoove's side is his decisions at running back are a little bit tougher than Rico's, in my opinion. However, I really like the Keenan Allen with Justin Herbert at Atlanta next week. Not saying that you necessarily start Justin Herbert. I'm just saying that I think that Chargers game is a big game, kind of determining the outcome of that. Keenan Allen I can't remember a week where he only put up 4.8 points this year and hasn't gotten injured or hurt or something throughout the game. Derrick Henry had a horrible game, so I think he bounces back like crazy. If I'm doing this 10 out of 10 times, I think that I take Rico's squad. But for next week, I think I'm with you guys. I think I like Hoover slightly with a shit ton of points.
Quit picking my team.
That's four. That's a four-way for you right there.
Oh my gosh.
I mean, just slightly, because it's one of those things when like with Rico having the backs that he has, it almost sometimes maybe might get in your head a little bit. Like, who do I start? Like, do I sit Zeke? Do I start Myles Gaskin because he had a good week this past week after his injury and he's been playing solid? Like, do I just want a solid player? Do I want to go for the home run? Like, he's almost got the problem of too many choices. And if he starts 100% perfect lineup, I think he does win. But I just think with the matchups that you have, Hoove, I pick you next week.
Oh, well, I picked Rico because you guys, I don't know. I was hoping someone would pick against me, for crying out loud. No, I don't know. I feel like the guys that I have are pretty consistent, and that's one thing that I'd rather have. I mean, I know, Matt, you know that about me, and Bob, you've been playing with me long enough, you know that as well. I mean, admittedly, I said, sometimes I feel like my fantasy players are like my kids. You just can't give up on them. But I'm always wanting the consistency. I feel like I have that. I feel like in general, I think my matchups are pretty good. I mean, I'll be honest. Like I've picked Herbert. I've rode him the whole season pretty much. So I'm going to stick with him and just having that stack with Keenan Allen, especially against Atlanta, that's really intriguing to me. I don't want to, get away from that. But, my running backs, it's been a weak spot, which is kind of crazy. It's never been a problem for me. But it's a glaring issue that bothers the heck out of me. So, that's going to be tough, like Matt, you were saying. But, I mean, I don't know. Like, I think there's some potential things, with even like that Green Bay. I think Green Bay, they play don't they play Detroit?
They play Detroit.
So, I mean, it's a division game. So that could be, it could turn into something weird, where maybe they be able to keep Adams in check. I don't know. I mean, that's one thing, like when it comes to divisional games, I try not to bet on those games. And when it comes to doing suicide, I never like picking divisional games. So, I mean, I think I got a good shot. But I really would rather play Tim if I had a choice.
And that still may happen. That still may be an option. We're just laying them out as we see them.
Right.
With that being said, though, like we could just real quick say that does flip flop, and say Rico ends up getting that 4 seed and plays Mokel. With Rico's matchups, I actually like Rico to win that a lot.
I definitely.
And then I also, because we already picked Mokel to beat Tim, I like Hoover falling over Tim.
Yeah.
So that could change. That could change things. I think Hoover wins either way, but I think there's a chance that if that flip flops, we see an Uncle Rico Tucson Chaos semifinal, which could be fireworks.
Yeah, I think the more kind of firepower teams, not to put anybody down in the league or anybody's squads or anything like that, but are actually in, other than Whitus, are in the bottom half of this bracket. That 6 seed with Rico, a couple things happen a little bit different, and he's looking at a 1 or 2 seed, with the team that he has. So you have 3 really powerful teams, and then also Frank, the squad that you've managed to put together and has kind of been able to put up some points the last couple weeks. You're a dangerous team to be in there as well. So I think that's actually, right now to me, the harder road to go through, because you have really tough matchups every week.
Yeah, I would agree. The bottom half of the bracket is ridiculous.
So we'll go into the last game. Speaking of the bottom half, and we'll let Hoover top this off, and then we'll have the 2 guys that are potentially playing talk about it. We got Becker going against you, Frank.
So I'm just doing a quick look over like the Frank's team right now. I'll be curious to hear what Frank has to say, who's going to start at quarterback, especially after this past week with Baker. He's got some interesting decisions to make. I'm trying to look at his flex. He's pretty solid with his running backs. Receivers, Parker, Cup, Cooks. I mean, that's tough, man, having Corey Davis and Cole Beasley sitting on the bench with the combined. What is that?
I have some very important decisions to make next week.
Yeah. So, I mean, like, without delving too far into it, man, you got a good squad here. Holy crap. You're missing 2 guys. I think the big thing will be making the right choice at quarterback for you. I mean, if it were me, and this is without – I'm going to look real quick. I'm sorry. I'm going to take up forever looking at this. Baker plays Baltimore. That's kind of tough, right? Am I right about that?
Yeah.
Tua plays KC.
Tua plays KC.
It could be a shootout.
Oh, man, that's tough. That's a really tough. So I think that's going to be a big time, and that's going to be luck, with if you make the right pick or not. All right, let me look at Bob's team. Bob's getting McCaffrey back, but I'm always, and I'm sure Bob will probably talk about this, I'm always leery about a guy coming off of an injury, especially when he came back and then got hurt again. Let's see here. I've been living the life of Devin Singletary, my other league. It freaking sucks. Philip Lindsay, he's been injured too. Let's see here. But you'll be getting Mike Davis back, which is a plus. A.J. Brown, Aguilar, Waller, Marvin Jones. Let's see. Who do the Steelers play next week? Let's see.
Buffalo.
I mean, they're tough D.
Mike Evans will be back against a pretty good matchup, though, too.
Yeah. Man, I think this game's going to be close, too, to be honest with you. It's hard to, envision it. So you have Mike Evans in there, Mike Davis or McCaffrey. Oh, my gosh, this is tough. Honestly, I think Bob has some pieces that are just, they command more points. They command more touches. I think he's got head and shoulders at the quarterback position. I think that's going to be a bugaboo for this matchup. Let me look at Frank's team one more time. This is hard. Holy cow. But Nick Chubb but they're playing Baltimore too. I just kind of parsing through this. Who's Denver have? They have Carolina. So I mean, man, I think this is going to be really tight. I'm gonna go with Bob's team. I think he's got some better matchups. I think he has some guys that they get more touches overall, and I think Frank's team has some matchup issues too. Last one. I mean, James Robinson's just been doing his thing all season, so it's
He
not
really
even,
has.
it doesn't matter who he plays. I think it's gonna be super close. And it's crazy. Frank keeps on talking about being, giant slayers, man. You get to lay a pretty big one that first week in the playoffs. So, but I think I'm going with Bob just because I think he's got some better matchups, and I like his quarterback a lot more than what Frank has. Matt, what are you thinking? This is hard.
So I definitely there's not matchups are kind of hurting Frank a little bit next week. I think if he starts the right quarterback, I think he needs to get 25 points from his quarterback. So he's got to pick the right one. And honestly, if I look at this right now, I don't know who I start. So I think that's the tough decision for him. But Robinson's been doing it. Chubb's been doing it. Kupp has been pretty good all year long. He didn't have a touchdown this week. He still has 73 yards. Man, this is tough. I really like the running back scenarios that Frank has on his team. Melvin Gordon has kind of looked like he's taken that lead role in Denver and kind of been the guy after the last couple weeks. So having depth at running back is nice. I think I got Bob though, unless it's over 25 from his quarterback.
And Matt, I'm going to kind of go with you too, where you said about whose team was it?
I mean, if it wasn't for the matchups that he has next week, I mean, it's still almost a coin flip. But if it were the matchups that you have next week, Frank, are just not in your favor for the first week of playoffs.
Yeah, they're definitely not.
I'm along the lines with Matt, and maybe this is just personal preference, not necessarily Frank's thing, but I'm in agreement with Matt where you kind of said about Uncle Rico. It's like too many decisions, man. I want a clear-cut path, clear-cut, these are my guys. And I think Frank, he doesn't have that. That's tough. I think that, yeah. And then when you're like having to think about it, you start overthinking things, and maybe you don't play the guy who's been good all season, and it's like, well, he's got a bad matchup, da-da-da-da-da. Maybe you overthink it. So I think that's something else that Frank has to overcome.
Yeah, I mean, like his team's got a lot of fire, and I mean, he put up. What'd you put up this week, Frank? 116. 116 with another. Had you started Baker, started Corey Davis, like if you started the right guys, you're looking at maybe 140, 150.
Yeah, for sure.
So I think you can't have that happen next week against Becker and still win. And it's so tough to pick guys because I feel like I always pick the wrong ones. But slight edge to Becker with McCaffrey coming back. But there's so many scenarios where I could see Frank winning this game.
All right, Frank, show us the game plan of how you plan on upsetting the seafood.
I think I'm going to keep that to myself until no, I don't know, man. It's tough. I think for me, the only way I win is if I start the right quarterback and the right receiver combination. I think that's the only chance I have. I can't have Corey Davis on the bench with 24, or I can't have Cooper Kupp on the bench with 24. Like it has to be. I think I need 100% perfect lineup to beat Bob this week. I've already beat him once. He wants revenge. I know that. He's got McCaffrey coming back. He scores a lot. He's the defending champ. Ideally, I would want to win. I'm hoping I win if I make the right choices, but I think I would probably say Bob's going to win would be where I'm going. But I definitely can see myself winning. I mean, I've already done it. I've proven that I can beat any of the top teams, so I do have faith that it can still happen.
All right, Bob. Final say.
I mean, I do like my matchups, and I think you guys hit everything on the head exactly right. I mean, he compared to my team, he has a lot more decisions to make, and that usually, sometimes it can be great. Sometimes you make all those right decisions, all of a sudden you're staring at 163 at the end of the week, and you feel great. But there's other times where, and I think Frank has already felt this a little bit, you deal with some inconsistencies when you're just so deep and you don't have those clear-cut top, producers week to week. I think that's difficult. Now, I've known Frank for long enough to know that he's a lucky fucker. and this son of a bitch, I'm sure will probably score the week of his life next week. But if I'm looking at it honestly, I do think he has a decision to make at quarterback. In my personal opinion, I think with Baker playing Baltimore and Tua playing KC, even though I agree that could potentially be a shootout or it could get ugly.
And Ryan Fitzpatrick might be playing, so we don't know. If Tua
comes out and he's 6 of 10 for 48 yards again, they might be like, all right, look, we need somebody to stretch the field a little bit. We're bringing Fitzmagic in, and Tua gets nothing. So, I think I win at the quarterback position. I think running back is tough. I think because James Robinson's been so consistent, I think it's tough. I'm hoping that CMC comes back and can just hang, or I want CMC to come back and beat what Chubb does, especially against Baltimore. CMC's playing Denver. The reason that I have faith in CMC, for one, he already came back once from an ankle injury and had a monster game, and then he gets hurt the next game. This time he hurt his shoulder. His feet should be quick. He should have still been running all the footwork drills and all that stuff. Like, he should be fresh. And that's what I'm telling myself anyway. So I'm hoping that CMC hangs with or beats Chubb a little bit, because I think Robinson's going to beat whatever option I put in my second running back slot to kind of wash out the running back situation. I think at receiver, I can beat him. I think my top end, AJ Brown, Mike Evans against a Minnesota team but it just depends on what, who's Tom Brady throwing the ball to that day. Maybe it's Godwin for 4 touchdowns and Gronk for 1.
No Godwin.
But Cooper Kupp or Amari Cooper plays Cincy, which could be good even for a Dallas team that's not that good. I don't love Darren Waller's matchup against Indy. Marvin Jones is against Green Bay. Who knows what the hell happens there? That guy drives me insane. But I have Brandon Ayuk, who honestly, I'm not even sure if I've ever started him. The kid's pretty good. Like, he doesn't ever seem to crack my lineup. Maybe next week's the week. I could, my Browns defense. I think top end wise, I have enough to beat him, especially at receiver. Like he said, I think Frank hit it perfect. His receiver combination is going to have to probably put up some points. And if he can hang with me there is a chance he beats me at running back. And if he does get that production out of the QB, it's a coin flip at that point. To be honest, I don't look forward to playing any of you fuckers in the playoffs, just because it's always nerve wracking, and everybody has some potential to beat anybody any given week,
any given Sunday.
Right. I mean, I like myself for the reasons I said. I think my matchups are a little bit better. Top end wise, I think I have some for sure decisions that I don't have to make. I'm probably not going to play Big Ben next week against Buffalo. I'm playing Rodgers against Detroit. Stuff like that makes my life a little easier. Whether that works itself out, I don't know. So far, I've been lucky this season, but maybe this is where my luck runs out. I don't know.
So we kind of ran through the first round there. We're at an hour. I'm at 30% on my battery.
So I say we stick with that for this week.
Right.
And then we kind of next week look deeper into the playoffs and make our projections to say, who we think moves on, see how close we were, stuff like that, as far as the matchups and teams go. Because this is all just speculation, and a lot of this could still move on these matchups depending on what happens in these last, quarter of this game and game tomorrow.
I will say the one thing I think is probably the most intriguing is just seeing if you're Whitus or Bob, and we could ask Bob what, and and I guess maybe Bob won't want to talk about it, but to see where Uncle Rico falls, like how pissed is Bob or Whitus going to be if where he falls, because that just makes their path infinitely more difficult.
I mean, I think the way we have it set now, I think, is the worst of both scenarios, because it's you and Rico on my side of the bracket. So I think that, and since I picked you to win anyway, I'm not pissed either way. Like, I think we all know this. I got to get through Frank before I worry about.
Yeah, I knew you wouldn't really tell us how I knew you weren't thinking about it like that.
Yeah, like to be honest, I would prefer that Rico was on the other side and it was, you and Tim, and for some reason maybe you laid an egg and Tim slid by you, because I think on paper, I think Tim's team's not as strong as yours, but once again, Tim's got a team like Frank's that, Josh Jacobs can go off, and, Russell Wilson gets back to form. All of a sudden you're in a lot of trouble, playing him. So like I said, I really don't look forward to playing anybody. It's nerve-wracking every single week to put this together. I just, that's why I made the moves that I did when I did, because I was in that hole where Tim's in now, or some of these teams that are like just struggling to, like, you get in and you can't win. And like, I just feel like I'm in my wheelhouse to win. Like, I'm within that 4 to 5 year span of like, okay, hey, look, my team's going to be really good. And then we're going to have some decisions to make, and some things are going to change, and I'm probably going to fall back down and kind of start the process over, kind of like it happens a lot of times in the NFL with teams. I mean, you have your perennial teams that are good for a long time, but a lot of times teams get good and then players kind of move on and want bigger contracts, and they can't pay everybody, and they sort of fall back down the pecking order and then come back up. So
yeah, I just thought it'd be interesting. I mean, I think, I'd rather see Uncle Rico up in the top half, but I mean, I guess for me, I just don't want to play him in the first round. I'd rather play Tim. That's, so, I mean, I'm not looking ahead at anything. I just rather see him up top.
No,
be White's problem.
I 100% agree. I mean, I don't envy you at all having to draw, you have such a good season, and you take that 3 seed to get that matchup in the first round. That's not ideal.
I know it sort of sucks, but that's, sort of how it goes. I don't know.
You're going to have to play good teams eventually in the playoffs. I mean, it's inevitable, and there's going to, there's so much element of luck involved. And I also think that this year especially, there's been big players that have been inconsistent more than ever. You look at Zeke. Whitus isn't even starting him this week in his line. Right. Like you have guys that have been monster guys in seasons past, and they lay more eggs than it seems to me ever. And not just in this league, but just overall fantasy wise, with the injuries and the inconsistency. So you really don't know on any given week, what could happen.
Yeah. Hence any given Sunday.
Any given Sunday.
So,
real quick, while we're finishing up, I'm actually looking up right now. I should be able to determine the order of the first 4 draft picks in next year's draft.
I'm definitely curious. So maybe a couple more minutes and then we'll hop off. I will say we just had a big play happen.
Greg Davis scored, didn't he?
Yeah, he just scored. So it makes it a little bit tougher for Bob.
Bobby's projected to lose by 6 now after that touchdown.
Who just scored?
Greg Davis for Buffalo.
Gabriel Davis.
Or Gabriel Davis, yeah.
Young Gabriel.
Yeah, that was a big play.
And why did he play him? Like, who's Greg Davis? Who's this guy?
Yeah, I mean, man. And it's funny too, Matt, like you were saying, it's like you look at Rico's team and you see he has Zeke Elliott. Like, oh man, that's kind of worrisome. But then it's like, really, he hasn't had, I don't even think he's a top 10 guy,
No, and then
he has been horrible this year, man.
And then he has Myles Gaskin, who, he's been injured, but he's been okay all year. So do you play him? Miles Sanders has been very up and down. You kind of have to go with Miles, but he's had duds out there. Philadelphia's kind of a mess right now. Like, are they even starting Carson, or is it gonna, who's it gonna be? Is it gonna be Jalen next week? And then what's the offense look like? So, I love the players on White's teams, but some of those guys that you look at and go on paper, oh my God, how's this team that loaded?
Yeah.
But then when you come to actual what happens in the game, you don't know.
Oh yeah, I'm in trouble now. Unless Singletary can stick one in the end zone or something. All right, so now this is just very quick. Keep in mind, I will obviously double check all of this at some point. But it appears that Rich and Eric will both finish at 4-9. Obviously, this could change a little bit if, say Lance happens to pull this out, then obviously this changes. But as it sits, as far as our predictions go, Rich beat Eric earlier in the season. They only played once. So both teams are 4-9 at the end of this season. So Eric will have the number 1 overall pick. Rich will have the number 2 pick. And then Steve-O and Lance will both be 5-7 or 5-8 potentially. That's what we're saying will happen. And Steve-O beat Lance. So Lance will have the number 3 overall pick and Steve-O will have number 4.
So one final question for you, Bob. Waivers are still happening on Wednesday, correct?
For only the players that make the playoffs.
Okay. So because they clear so early, like I guess for myself and Lance, do we have to wait to process anyone?
I mean, we're gonna know before they process whether who's in and who's out. So I mean, you can do your routine as you normally do, and if you're the team that ends up being the team out and you put in for somebody, I just ask that you remove your bid. Just take, don't ultimately, like if Lance wants to put in for some guys because he's hoping that he makes it. But yeah, like we'll know tomorrow about Lance, right? So
yeah, tomorrow night we'll know who's in.
So and if that's probably when he's putting in anyway. I mean, if you have guys in now, the only thing that I ask is that, if Lance ends up pulling this out and wins, just retract it.
Okay.
And it's not a huge deal. Obviously, I can see who bid what. Like if I have to go in and manipulate the roster later because somebody put in a bid and it didn't work out or whatever, it's not a huge deal. But yeah, as of like this point forward, we think that Rich and Eric are out. So don't put in for anybody. Lance is the only one that's kind of up in the air. Steve-O, don't put in for anybody. And then same thing goes after the first round of the playoffs as well. Those 4 teams that lose, you guys are out. No more free agents. And then the remaining 4 teams can put in for free agents for the remainder of the year because they are still playing for money. Even if you happen to lose in the semifinals, you're still playing for 3rd place, which obviously pays more than 4th place. So you're able to continue to do that. But once that final week is over, week 16, it is locked up. Nobody can do anything.
Fair enough. Sounds good.
All right. Well, let's see here. I'm trying to think. Sunday. I don't know who the Monday night game is next week.
Let's see.
And who knows what the hell happened with COVID. So
yeah, there could be some breakouts or something.
I know, right? Let's just aim for Monday night again. Just simply because hopefully by then we can have a pretty good idea of what's happening and what's going on, and makes for better conversation instead of having to guess on a lot.
Browns Ravens Monday night.
Yeah, baby. Brownies.
Yeah, that could be a good game.
Steelers Bills play Sunday night. So
oh wow.
Actually yeah.
Got some big games there.
Yeah.
Monday.
So Matt, are you good for Monday?
Yeah, I'm good for Monday.
All right. So, guys, if you want to hop on Monday, you're more than welcome. Goes out to anybody that would like to join.
Maybe we could get an all playoff crew in here.
Oh, that'd be cool.
That'd be pretty dope.
Like well, I guess it'd be some people are going to be pissed. So maybe that won't.
That is true.
4 guys are going to be bringing the pooping on the party.
I'm not going to get to Monday until after I see what my team does. There may not be a show.
Right.
No, I'm just kidding. I think Matt. I'm hoping. I haven't talked to Matt about it, but I'm hoping Matt and I will just kind of continue throughout the playoffs, and then maybe have like an end of season wrap up kind of thing. But so we'll shoot for Monday night halftime game again, and like I said, anyone's welcome. And even moving forward, there'll be less and less kind of to talk about. So it might be good to have more people on just to get different perspectives. So anyways, thank you guys for joining. Hopefully, the other guys enjoy the hour. If not, I had a good time. So thanks for joining.
Yeah. Sorry. I think every time I join the show, it's like an hour long. Maybe I talk too much.
I wasn't going to say anything, but
yeah, right.
No,
I'll work on it.
I just drank way too many beers. The 25.
Cheers. I'm
All right,
drinking
see you,
too.
boys.
Yours looks better than mine, though.
all right, guys.
Later.
Take care. Have a good week.
See
You
you,
too.
boys.
Later.